Okay, welcome everyone. Welcome to Challenges, Collaboration, and Circularity. I'm really happy to be here today with you. My name is Karla Magruder, and I'm the founder and president from Accelerating Circularity. With us today, we have Andrea a.venier. He's the CEO at Officina, plus 39. We have Lucia Rosin, founder of Meidea, and then Tricia Carey, Director of Global Business Development at Lenzing. So what we're going to talk about today is the collaboration and the challenges around the circularity market. So if we change slides, Accelerating Circularity is an organization that was developed just to do those things. And so we thought we'd start with an introduction to Accelerating Circularity. And so if you move to the next slide, our mission is really to divert textile waste from landfill. So our goal is to move textiles from a linear supply chain to a circular supply chain. We're going to do that by researching, mapping, linking, and creating pilots that will outline what a circular supply chain really looks like. We're focusing very specifically on chemical and mechanical recycling for polyester and cellulosic materials. And that's was done very intentionally because it's being done that those materials cover over 80% of the textile market. Today, in the United States alone, there's about 17 million tons of textile waste that was collected. 11.2 million tons of that went to landfill. 3.2 million tons of that were incinerated. So that's a total of 15.4 million tons that go into landfill every year and growing in the United States. Less than 1% of the material that doesn't go to landfill that gets recycled actually goes into new materials. So in essence, every second, and this is a global number, one garbage truck of textile waste is either landfilled and incinerated. So needless to say, the reason for accelerating circularity and the importance of this work is very clear. So if we move on to the next slide, what we talk about when we talk about circularity and the work that we see that needs to be done. If you look at this slide, on the left-hand part of the slide, you see the existing supply chain, and you can see a blue bar. And that blue bar, it shows the connection between all of the points in the textile supply chain. You know, fiber manufacturing, yarn spinning, textile mills, garment making, brands, retailer, consumer. Those people are all connected today. What's not connected today is everything from reuse and swapping, those types of things. Now, that's really not a remit for accelerating circularity and for many manufacturers, but it's an important aspect of circularity. But then when we step into things like waste collection, textile sorting, shredding, that feedstock conversion piece, and then the chemical and mechanical recyclers that are needed, those are the parts of the supply chain today that aren't connected in a way that allows us to move smoothly into the existing supply chain. So that's really the work that we talk about at Accelerating Circularity. It's this systems perspective of how do we figure out all the things that come into and go out of each of these steps of the textile supply chain. The one thing that's I think is really important about circularity, if we can connect these pieces, we can move right into the existing supply chain. So that allows for very quick scalability, provided we get the part on the right-hand side connected. We can move to scale quickly once we start connecting these other pieces. So to do this work, if you move on to the next slide, you can see that what we've done is we've created a working group, and this working group comes together on a monthly basis. Lenzing is a part of that as a chemical recycler, Unify as a mechanical recycler. We have brands that are involved with us. We also have a chemical polyester recycler and a mechanical cotton recycler. The brands Gap, VF, and Target. We have some consulting organization that works in waste. So we felt that these were the people that were required for us to put together a team that had the expertise, that could do this, that could stick to the strategy and get the work done. Now, if we move on to the next slide, one of the things that we realized is this is a big industry and everybody needs to participate. Because right now we're focused on the East Coast of the United States because waste is a very local issue, we invited to join us as a collaborating organization several organizations that have broader membership, so that what we can do is we can share the information and the research that we're doing, and they can help us amplify what we're talking about, as well as provide us with information. And so we have other industry organizations that focus on things that are different than what we're doing with, but very closely aligned so that we can help one another. I mean, for instance, the SMART organization, they're an organization that deals in secondary materials and recycled textiles. So they're already collecting materials. They're going to different end uses today, primarily not the textile industry, but they are able to help us and guide us on some of those things. So as we move to the next slide, we'd like to introduce one of our next guests. And Andrea, I'd like to ask you about how the collaboration came together here. You could see in the slides that we just showed how important collaboration is and how you need to bring people together.
Yeah, firstly, hi Karla, hi everybody, and let me say that it's a pleasure today to be with you. You are an incredible woman in our world, in the denim fashion world, so it's a big pleasure for me to be here today. This project, Act Together and the Circle Book, born primarily as a concrete example of what we like to call collaboration economy. Act together at the end means this, work together, sharing ideas and visions. The project was developed during the peak of COVID-19 here in Italy. We are all aware that fashion must change before the COVID-19, and I think the COVID-19 accelerated this process. I think coronavirus represents the biggest crisis, but also we know that this is a biggest challenge worldwide, that we have to take this big challenge, address to this big challenge. With Tricia and Lucia, we have often spoken during recent months, and I think that it was a little bit natural to decide to do something together after those discussions, to do something concrete. And I think this is the cycle book that Lucia and Tricia later will comment also. This book is an example of sustainable innovation that is aimed to the designers and brands. And our idea was to trace a new way to design sustainable fashion. I think using digital technologies and developing only what is really necessary in the R&D stage, our job. So in our laboratories, we just developed the necessary panel legs. I think this is the future that we have to follow up. The future, I think, will be less fashion show, less luxury, and less waste, and more attention to sustainability and creativity. And this is what inspired the Circle book. Refibra and Resecrom are good ambassadors for this, of course. And let me just close. Act Together is a virtual, a contagious, in this case not dangerous, like the virus, call to action. And this is how we started this collaboration.
That's great, Andrea, thank you. And Lucia, Do you want to then tell us a little bit about Act Together Now and introduce yourself?
Yes, thank you, Karla, and thank you to my friends, Tricia and Andrea, to be here. And yeah, I am a designer, head designer, and the founder of Meidea, that is a creative company. We are working since many years in sustainability, so we try to develop an original way to answer to the company. We are, let's say, trying to develop and search for their own identity in sustainability. We establish a kind of traceability of creativity. This is another part I will tell you later, because it's also important how you can create and how important is the role of the designer in this moment. So when we start to discuss with Tricia and Andrea, we start before the COVID-19. So our project was to create something special, starting from the filter of the fiber till the end, the garment. So in this way, we are able to trace and to control all the phases during the creation of garments. But of course, during the COVID-19, that comes up a different idea, that is to be in a digital way and also to be more practical, because of course we have to help the company, brand, and the mills to follow this path that we are creating. For us, this circle book, this Act Together, is a kind of a call to action. Of course, it's our own way. So we are doing something small, but of course we are growing. So when we started together, we decided how to call this project. And it was natural, as Andrea say, called Act Together, because Act Together is a natural way to be and do something. And then while we were working, start the idea to circle book. And circle book because it's grouping all the things, starting from zero to the end, so it's a kind of circle. So going step by step, here you see some of the sketches that we created. What we have done is starting from a fibra. This is a good example in how the circular economy acts. Starting from man-made fiber, sustainable, mixed with recycled fiber. So this is one important step and good example. Then we work with some of the more, let's say, sustainable, dedicated mills. So we select some of the fabric. They are developed together with some innovative fiber or recycled fiber or even hemp. So we select this kind of fabric and we design our sketches. So all these steps that we touch, we go deeply in the things we touch. We went together with Andrea, we talked many times. We have a long discussion in how we develop things. So the sketches are just a representation. But if we go the next slide, is how we created the circle book logo. So, and then this is starting from the idea, so it's definitely related with nature. So all the things that are creating now have to return to the nature, have to return in the cycle. So even the logo, and you can see the book, the circle of book, remind you the Sustainable Development Goal logo. So it's just to, let's say, to be in that way. This is the direction we want to keep it. So starting from this, we develop everything. So maybe we go to the short video we created for the launch of the book. Okay, so returning to the circle book, and here we have the slide of the collaboration when we went in the Officina 39, and we select some of their treatment. They are perfect, perfect fitting with our project. So some like Recyclone, this is coming from recycled and from pigment. Maybe later Andrea can talk you more in detail. And also with all the team. So this is again a teamwork. It's not just something that we have to act, but doing all together, discussing and make the best solution, find out the best solution in the project is our aim. So going to the next slide. Here is the laboratory where we were all together with the Officina 39 team and where we selected all the finishing. And then we created all the garment and the design. What we had done, and then we are going to receive the book, we will see, after we treated, the leg tube, as Andrea explained, we decided to keep it as a value. Normally, when you treated the leg tube or, the fabric, they are kind of waste. We decided to use it as gold because this is a very powerful way also to show when we are going to digital, to show the work and to see even the detail of the fabric. So this is something we use all the things we collect during our work. And this is another important step. So don't use everything till the end. So, and then we have the slogan, the final slogan for us, synergy is energy. So this is the aim and this is the project that we want to, maybe we can explain more later. Thank you.
Thank you, Lucia. Can you tell us or talk to us a little bit about how does creativity thrive within a circular perspective?
This is a perfect question. Yeah, this is a perfect question because as a designer, this is a perfect moment and this is a perfect way we have to change the face of fashion. Not only fashion, but generally how we live. So for the design, not only in fashion, but in any field, we have a very core and important part because we have to start from zero. So this is an opportunity, incredible opportunity. We have to create with the principle of circular design. So, and we have to investigate in all the material and the thing we are using to be able to see if this can be in the circle. I think, and we think why we are practice every day, this is a huge opportunity also to refresh and to rethink the way we design. This is a huge opportunity because going out of the regular way while we are designing, with this new perspective, we are able to find out a new world. And of course, this is something that we have definitely do it now. Because after COVID-19, there will be a huge opportunity for digital, even while we are using digital in creativity. So also the circle book is also important because it represents a step forward where we are creating.
That's great. Thank you. Andrea, from your perspective, it's a little bit different. So how from your perspective, does creativity fit into circularity?
So for me, fashion is still currently, we can say, deeply rooted in a linear approach, no? Means make, use, and dispose. I'm not a designer, but of course we are working very close with the designer. And I think that the right approach between creativity and circularity should be turned into a simple question. That is, what if you could redesign everything using sustainable, resilient, and circular materials? And the rule should be imagination must have no limits. So I think really from the creativity point of view, the circular material, so the circularity, should give you the confidence to redesign the world around you. I think this is the big goal.
Great. Well, so we're talking about circularity here and creativity. And then the flip side of that is, I think everybody would like to move to circularity, certainly. But what are the greatest challenges around that? Tricia, do you want to start with that one?
Sure, yes. So I'm Tricia from Lenzing. We manufacture TENCEL. Actually, I'm here in New York and you can see that if you've been following on any of the other webinars, it's nice that I'm finally out of my home. You can see New York City in the background. And just to kind of pick up on a couple of points, you know, collaboration from some of the comments in the beginning, I think is so important. And where this came together actually was about 3 years ago when I met Andrea in New York City. And since then, we've been following each other on the same rodeo tour of different denim shows. And it's wonderful to see how this was able to solidify even during this very trying time. And so I think that's very important for us. And so for Lenzing, we manufacture TENCEL lyocell, and we also entered the circular economy with our Refibra fiber in 2017. When we launched Refibra, we were using 20% post-industrial cotton waste, and we have since moved on to 30%, a mix of post-industrial and post-consumer waste. And so some of the challenges that we face, I think, are really related to, first of all, education, and that the market needs to understand the difference between mechanical recycling and chemical recycling. The education is key on circularity. And I think, you know, here, while many denim mills and many other mills have been doing recycling, they perhaps weren't calling it out. For denim mills that for many years, they've been recycling their cotton scraps. So this is an area where we could continue to develop and grow. So the education element, I think, is first. Second, I see the challenges are around commitment, and that's commitment coming throughout the entire supply, and I want to say a supply network, because it's no longer just a chain from one company to the next company. And what you showed in the beginning, Karla, of having this circle, it's showing how we're really more of a network and how we can work together. And this commitment comes also from brands and retailers, that they're building programs and initiatives and challenging themselves, where season after season, they want to integrate more circular materials into their supply chain. And certainly it's not about something that you can do automatically. It's something that season after season, where you can show that progress. And I would say that the third challenge that we see, and what I've seen since 2017 in working with Refibra technology, the issue is also around cost. And for many of the retailers and brands that I've worked with, they'll say, well, I only want to do something if it's cost neutral. And we have to think better than that, because we actually also have to look at how we're defining value and where we're looking at cost. And this is another part of what we're seeing from the work that we're doing at Accelerating Circularity, is that, you know, it might not be the raw material inputs, but where is the total cost? And it shouldn't be the burden of one particular part of the raw material supplier to have to take on all of that cost. And so when we launched Refibra in 2017, we had spent at least 5 years in the R&D development of it. And I'm sure that's very similar for Andrea with some of their developments too around rustic chrome. So how do we work together in understanding that, you know, it's different when you're looking at circularity. It's actually much easier for us to take a new raw material and to continue to, you know, use that and pump out. And right now, the mindset that we're in after this pandemic pause is very much one of reflection and looking at all of our consumption that we have around the world. So these are the three main challenges that I see around the education, the commitment, and the cost.
Fantastic. I couldn't agree with you more. We'll let Andrea weigh in and where he sees the challenges in terms of trying to get to circularity. And I like the point you made earlier, Andrea, about the idea of needing to do something concrete as you go towards circularity.
Karla, of course, I agree with Tricia. What I always think that mainly circularity, one of the big challenges on circularity that doesn't depend on consumers. So consumer can influence brands for sure, but companies brands, governments, and related organizations must do huge effort to create, firstly, the system and the structure to encourage the use of recycling products, and before use the recycling product to make recycling. So I think this is one of the big challenges. So, the other big challenge is building trust around circularity. For the circular economy to become a reality, a company must share, firstly, information, must be really transparent and serious. And so in one word, we like to call this trust-enable. We invented this word internally, and in Officina Plus 39, we are trying our best on that.
I love that. That's really fantastic. And one of the things that we're going to ask today is that people go on the Accelerating Circularity and look at our surveys. There's a variety of surveys, and we know that people need to be transparent and share information so that you can set up the systems that you're talking about, Andrea. That was sort of a perfect segue for that. And that it does require everyone. I think that that was an incredibly important point, including the government, including every step along, or every step in the supply network, as Tricia calls it. And if we are to start really using these recycled materials over and over again, we're going to have to come up with systems that don't necessarily participate in this textile supply chain today. So whereas Refriva today has up to, they're using a combination of both post-consumer and post-industrial, we need systems to collect that, to sort it, to be able to get it to Lenzing so that it's in the right format so that they can use it. And that needs to scale, and that's a difficulty today. So that sort of goes to our next question. What's the commercialization process, and how do we get to scalability? What are the things that are going to make that happen? Andrea, do you want to kick that one off?
I start? Yeah.
Yes.
So first, what happened for example, for us with Recychrome, that for who don't know, Recychrome is colors, is a dye stuff that we are producing, transforming, recycling, upcycling, better to say, the textile wastage coming from pre-consumer or post-consumer cellulosic fibers. And we are transforming in a very small powder, and then we are using that powder to replace the conventional synthetic dyestuffs. This was a long journey for us and a big adventure to develop at the beginning Recychrome, and after has been developed now to promote and to scale up. Firstly, I think I don't know if we can call secret, but at least the approach should be to see problems as opportunities. So if you want to develop something like Recychrome, you have to see problems as opportunities. Other way, you will never go ahead with any circular project, because as also you said, there are a lot of issues around the supply chain and so then you need, so it's true, you need to work hardly into this supply chain. That's the big problem, for example, that we noted, that often in the supply chain is not ready yet to offer you the best product for your technology. So in our case, for example, at the beginning, we have to adapt the closest product we found in the market to our needs, the closest one available in the market. But then to scale our project, you have to create the right synergies with our suppliers and with your supplier. And this is what we are trying to do now to scale up industrially our idea, our project. And then, of course, the most important remain the brands that must be interested in what we are offering.
Great. Tricia, I think that you've experienced some of those similar things. You want to tell us about your experience?
Yeah, very much so is the scaling up of Refibra. And as you mentioned, you know, we have a mix now of post-industrial and post-consumer, and our goal is by 2024 to be 50% post-consumer. And so I often look at that as then, you know, instead of using trees, is really that the consumers are supplying our raw material, which is very different. But as you show in the graphic with the circle, there's so many steps still that need to happen. And Karla, from conversations that we've had over the past year, this is when, you know, I could also see the missing parts that are needed, and the other companies that need to be involved in this conversation, because it's not as easy as a customer take back program sitting at retail into getting into pulp production for what we need for Refibra. And so this is where new people need to come into the whole fold of how to make this happen. And as I said before, you know, a part of this is the supply and the demand. And when I look back now, when we launched Refibra in 2017, you know, textile to textile recycling was really only known from a mechanical recycling standpoint. And that's what people understood on recycling. And so there was still this understanding of it. When we launched Refibra in 2017, we worked with Levi's, Patagonia, Eileen Fisher. These were some of the original brands that launched it, as well as Inditex and Country Road. Now our portfolio of brands has increased. I would say, you know, we probably have about 20 brands around the world that are using Refibra in their collections. And we have a very robust supply chain partners, especially on the denim side, using Refibra, because I do see the challenges that the denim industry has taken on around lowering their impacts. So I think this commercialization process that needs to happen, the supply and the demand kind of connecting together. And then another element to it is also the consumer understanding. And while I think consumers understand about recycling paper, glass, plastic, you know, how do they understand to recycle their textiles? What programs exist besides take-back programs at retail? And do consumers understand that when they're buying, you know, a new garment that's using Refibra or other recycled textiles, that it's not necessarily an inferior product? Do they understand what that really means? And I think this is also the communication and the partnership that we need to have with retailers and brands as they come out with products using recycled raw materials. And that's very much what we've been trying to work on with Refibra. And taking that, you know, how do you kind of make the best garment that you can with the materials that are currently available? And, you know, this is where we show options in working together, like with Officina, with Resichrome, that you can kind of overcome that and put together a garment, commercialize a garment that does bring the best of what is currently accessible in the market.
I think what Andrea said was really spot on, and that is, in a sense, with circularity, you know, it's a problem waiting to create some new opportunities. And we've had to take all of the things that are happening in the world, this waste that's in the landfill, and it, you know, the industry has talked for a long time about collaboration, but we're in a place today where if we don't collaborate, we're going to fail. And I think we've seen that through some of what's happened at COVID. Lucia, did you want to weigh in on that?
Yeah, I'm not an expert about that, but I want to say that about the collaboration, and that is one of the most important things why we started our collaboration together. I want to add something, Karla, while we were talking about the creating a collection. This is a huge opportunity, as Andrea said, is to start to look in a different way. Why we create a product. And another point that you will see in our circle book is there is no season. And this is very important because what we have, this system we created to have season, and then we are pushing into new product and also related, to new collection, pushing new product. This is another interesting point that we have to touch while we are doing the things. And for, the designer, this is one of the topic things. So seasonless means start to create a product with an intelligent approach. And this, if we create with this approach, even the scalability related to the previous question, we are able to create products that are much more easy to produce. And I want to talk about durability again, but while we are talking about circular system, this is a huge opportunity, especially now after COVID, to rethink our system and deeply start to look and to create the rules to design and create the collection, maybe without timing, but with intelligent product, with intelligent solution. This is how we have to act. So I'm very passionate while we are designing collection, while we are starting this project, because we really believe that is a key. And I want to, again, connect with Tricia, tell about, education. For the people much more experienced like us, we have a kind of, we have to do it. We have to teach to the new generation how they have to act. They know because they are much more fresh, but we have experience to guide them for the future. So this is incredible moment for us. That's why this collaboration is just something that is, a starting point for many young designer, because I know that many are following what we are doing, for them to create a new vision for the future.
That's great. I think if we move on to the next slide, we'll look at what that basis might be. So Tricia, I know an area of passion for you. We can see Lucia's passion in all of this. And I know one of your really big passions are these development goals, the sustainable development goals. Talk to, how do you think that the Sustainable Development Goals addresses circularity and the business of the way that it needs to be done today?
Yeah, so a little background on the UN SDGs. So they were developed 5 years ago to build a framework for all companies across any different industry on how to run their business. And I think, when you look at everything of these 17 Sustainable Development Goals, it really brings together both the environmental impacts as well as social. And we can't forget, certainly now, I think it's more and more relevant to us on the social side of what we need to do. And I think the UN SDGs were developed at such an appropriate time that we need these to build back better as companies after the pandemic. For Lenzing, we've been reporting on the SDGs for 3 years, where we do highlight programs that we're working on related back to specific SDGs. For Lenzing, we work a lot off of SDG 12, which is responsible consumption and production. This is true from our TENCEL lyocell, which actually has a closed loop circular production process where we reuse 99.5 to 99.7% of the solvent. So, you can bring circularity into your production process, or whether we're bringing circularity into the raw materials like we do with Refibra. So SDG 12 is very important. And also we've been doing, and for the past several years, a lot to focus on SDG 13, which is climate action. And this even goes back to some of the commitments that we've made with the UNFCCC, which is the Fashion Charter for Climate Change. And there, where we're setting specific targets, Lenzing has said that we'll reduce our carbon emissions with goals for 2030, as well as to be carbon neutral by 2050. So some very ambitious goals that we have as a company. And we've even had accepted science-based targets that are approved. That was last year that our science-based targets And the science-based targets give you a way to measure and check, and working on those targets with, you know, support and advice from other companies and other industries as well. And a personal favorite of mine is the SDG 17, which is partnerships. And I feel that, you know, where we are at as a raw material supplier, that our direct customers are only yarn spinners, but we work throughout the entire industry to work with mills, with garment finishers, even working with, you know, dye stuff providers like Officina, and all the way to the consumer, where we are educating around our materials. So partnerships for us are very important.
Actually, Tricia, I'm sure, I think everybody who knows you, recognizes that you and partnerships all go hand in hand.
Thanks.
It's really true. At Accelerating Circularity, we are focused heavily on responsible consumption and production, because that really does weigh in very heavily into circularity. And so I think when we selected those that were here today, everybody talked about what we thought was most important. And certainly for the garment industry in general, that responsible consumption and production is really important. They talk about their targets and goals, actually talk about measuring the amount of recycled materials, which is basically much of what we're talking about here today. Andrea, I think you were the one who was pushing for SDG number 6.
Yeah, as a chemical company, SDG number 6 is very important for us, and is very important means that we know that we have a big responsibility in front of SDG number 6. About SDG 17, this is an example about our approach as a company, as Officina Plus 39, to have a partnership. We did during last years different projects. This is not the first one, I hope not the last one, with TENCEL and with Lenzing. We did a previously amazing project also with Lenzing and Antonello, with different fashion designers. We are members of an important platform here in Italy, Fondazione Pistoletto Foundation, that is best is the platform dedicated to textile and sustainable textiles. So really partnership is something that is very important internally, and we are working day by day to try to share information and experience. Then SDG 12 also, Recycrom represent our effort for the SDG number 12. As I explained before, I think Recycrom is an incredible, unique product that really is changing the paradigm, is changing the rules of the dyeing, because we are using, we are upcycling something that is a wastage. And what we love also of Recycrom, when we started to work on that, that we realized that the Recycrom we can reuse more than one time. Means that when we are dyeing some garments using Recycrom, then we can again upcycling that garments, transforming in Recycrom again, and then dyeing again and again. Of course, this will be not for 110 or 1,000 times, but few times we can do that, losing every time a little bit the intensity of the color. But this is something that is very important for Recycrom. And coming to the number 6, of course, number 6 as a chemical company is the main focus for us. So develop new processes and products that can reduce the water consumption, and mainly the water conservation is one of our daily focus. In this, for example, we use it in the collection developed for the cycle book. some very innovative product like the removing jet that is our PP replacement. In this moment, we are talking about the potassium permanganate replacement alternative during the last 10 years. Now is something that the brands know that is available. So I think it's the time really to replace 100% the potassium permanganate. And this is one of the solutions now in the market. Then talking about the dyeing also, Nebu dye is another range and is another approach how to respect and how to give our effort to the SDG number 6, because Nebu dye, for example, is a full series of dye stuff. In this case, conventional dyes, but the big advantage of these dye stuffs that can be used in a nebulization system, so in the fog system. This means that we can reduce 85–90% the water consumption. So less water consumption, less water used, more water we can conserve. This is the idea. And then in the book, in the collection for the book, we just, during the pandemic time, we were working in an R&D. We strongly believe that innovation is the future. And we used one innovative product that is a bleaching process without water that very soon will launch in the market. So some of the treatment that already we did for the cycle book, we use that product. It is amazing technology that we very soon will launch into the market.
That's great, Andrea. There's a lot there to unpack. Lucia, was there a comment you would like to make about the SDGs?
Yes. Sorry if you hear some bell here. We have a church. So, okay, as a designer perspective, we touch all these, goal, because when we design, and who knows us as a consultant, know that we are really working in sustainability since many years. So we try to push as much as we can with all the company we collaborate to use the less water or use less chemical or, clever chemical intelligent, and also to use waste to push for recycled fabric, for recycled yarn. So this is something that we have as our way to work. Of course, if I have to look what we do as a practice, of course, number 13, because it's in our DNA, the climate action. And what we are doing for this is to train the younger generation. As Meidea, we work deeply to make a conference, to meet with the university, to train the people in a different way. So this is our, let's say, part, what we can do to push a little bit, or push in a more sustainable way the future. So the younger generation, the connection with them for us is one of the most important things we do. And of course, the number 17. What we have done with the circle books is just an example. Who knows us know that we are more partner than just a consultant. When we work, as you can see, my passion, but this happened for all the Meidea team, we go deeply in any things we do. So partnership is more than consultancy for us, to be, let's say, beside our client and push them, help them to follow new path. This is our goal. So all the goals are important, of course. We try to do our best as a micro company, but with power we have in our hand now. And I think with this circle book is a message. It's something simple, but can change, of course, the point of view on the things. We can start from zero and go to the end. So traceability is perfect way to achieve the goal.
Great, thank you. I was looking on the chat for questions. I don't know if there were, the only questions that I'm seeing are ones about whether or not we're recording this session, and we are.
There's some questions in the Q&A about traceability, and
Great.
So I'll address the traceability for Refibra. So we do add a fiber identification into the solvent. So when we take the pulp, we add the solvent to the pulp to dissolve it, And then we add in a fiber identification, which we can verify, fiber, yarn, fabric, garment stage. So that is our traceability that we have for Refibra. And Andrea, what do you have? Any comments on traceability?
Yeah. For us, in this moment, for example, we decided to work with some supplier that are providing us the textile wastage that are coming only from factories are working under OCOTES certification. So I'm talking in case of wastage coming from the pre-consumer, from industrial wastage. We are working in some project, in particular with G-Star, to implement traceability for Resecrom. This is a project that is a little bit delayed due to COVID-19. Hopefully in September, we'll be able to restart this project. This will be a really interesting project to improve the traceability of Resecrom and to really close the loop to collect all the information, not only if the wastage that we are transforming in Resecrom has been treated on the original fabrics with not harmful substances, but also to collect much more information like the dye stuff used. So to try to have much more information possible. This will be really helpful. And now, and then how you can, for example, because this was one of the first questions when we started to present this to the brands, and 3 years ago, when we were traveling, and how you can show me that this is not dye stuffs. And in that case, we, in very transparent way, we can show what we did with the University Textile here in Italy and the Institute for Research in Textile here in Italy, where very clearly they did for us a job with a microscope where you can see with the difference between a dye stuffs and a Resecrom. Really, you can see the Resecrom is fiber, is not dye stuffs. So means that really we know that traceability is something that we have to improve, and we are working for that hardly.
Great, thank you. I see another question. Tricia, did you want to say something else?
Yeah, the other question on the certifications that came up, and there's another question here on recycling and carbon footprint.
Right. So does anybody want to tackle any of those? I can make mention, and when it comes to the carbon footprint of a finished garment, certainly the choice that you make in terms of fibers, materials, and processing all will have an impact on the carbon footprint. You can't say it does or it does. I mean, you can't say that any one specific thing does, because you'd have to know all sorts of information to be able to say yes or no. It will have an impact, but which garment?
In our case, Karla, for example, we conducted a LCA on Resecrom, on the application of Resecrom, and also on the production of Resecrom, compared reactive dyes, that is most used dye stuffs for the cellulosic fibers worldwide. And what we discovered after the LCA assessment, that, for example, with Resecrom in certain parameters, factors, we can achieve credit on footprint. For example, talking again about SDG 6 on the water, for example, using Resecrom, we can give credit in footprint to the company that are using Resecrom, because, for example, the water eutrophication is giving amazing result compared to the conventional dyes in terms of less impact, I'm saying. So this is our personal experience on Resecrom.
And can I say something, Karla, about traceability and transparency? Again, from a designer point of view, what is important when we create a new collection is, of course, is trace what we are using, as you say before, because our selection, our choice is definitely giving the direction to the future. So why we are deciding on fiber or one finishing or one way to do the garment, even to sell the garment and present it in the shop. All this is part of traceability and transparency. So all these things, all the ingredients that we see with Tricia and with Andrea, this need to be collected together, and this make the big difference.
Sure. What Tricia had mentioned earlier, the UNCCC Fashion Charter for Climate Action commitment that Lenzing had made. The goal of that group is to identify the carbon footprint of various materials. And so these can be very complicated things that people are working towards. Tricia, did you have something that you wanted to weigh in on that?
No, I'm fine. Thank you.
All right, great. Let's see, we're getting a little bit short of time. There's some more questions coming in.
Karla, did you see there's one here, information for Andrea on chemicals for PP alternative and waterless bleach for laundries?
Yeah, this
Andrea?
yeah, the nebulization chemicals are ready, so we can ship immediately sample. And the new waterless bleach system we are launching officially end of this month or early next month. So means the product is ready. We are completing the last internal test, but practically the product is ready. This will be really a big innovation, we believe, for the laundry.
Great, thanks. Tricia, maybe you want to answer this last one. It says a product with recycled material is always cheaper, but why only in textiles recycled material, fiber, yarn, or fabric is more costly than virgin? I think you mentioned.
This is a good question.
I think you mentioned, and that might be a good way. And then we can maybe answer that, and then any final comments you'd like to make.
Yes, so material, recycled material, when we look at mechanical recycling versus chemical recycling, there's a difference in the cost factor there. Recycled material, fiber, yarn, or fabric is costly than virgin material because there's actually a lot more that goes into developing the raw material than using a virgin raw material. So the recycling process, and when we look at even for Refibra, we have many more steps involved. We actually have to make pulp in a separate, through a separate process than what we do for our wood pulp. So these all add into the cost factor. And initially, I also mentioned the amount of time that we've spent in research and development. And so this is still, a part of the cost of actually the fiber at this stage. And as we look to continue to commercialize it. And I feel strongly that with the right partnerships that we have in the market, we'll be able to bring this further into new developments that will meet a lot of the cost criteria that retailers and brands have.
So if I can add something, Karla, here, as I told before, the big problem of the cost, I think that is inside the system that we are still following, because as I told before, now the system is mainly based on make, use, and dispose, and not make, use, and recycling. And this is the big difference. So I'm sure that it's not our business, but at the beginning, the plastic or paper recycling costed much more than now, because the system was not implemented like now. So this means that really many costs are coming from the lack of the system to manage properly the recycling, the collection of the materials, and then how to select, to sort. So I think this is one of the adding costs that we are facing now when we are talking about recycling material. And of course, I'm sure that scale up and going ahead and improving the system, the cost will go down. But according to our experience, this is one of the big issues that we are facing.
Absolutely. Lucia, we're right at the top of the hour. Do you have just one last comment before we sign off?
Yeah, thank you. But I think that's, after we discuss about, all the opportunity that are given the circularity, as you say, and you are, let's say, one expert, I think that we have a unique opportunity now. And from my point of view, what we are facing the last 2 months from the request of our clients is more, let's say, in this direction. So this definitely give, a big idea about the future, because all the clients, all the designer, all the brands are looking for a different way to create their product. So for me, this is a big indication for the future. And of course, we are happy because after many years, all of us working in this area, finally this pandemic is giving, the big goal we have to. So this is something we will see soon, a big change.
Karla, I just wanted to add in closing then, because I know we're reaching out on time, that I wanted to also highlight our partners and some of our friends in Los Angeles who are using both TENCEL and Resichrome Ace Gold Green. So if you want to learn a little bit more about what Adriano Goldschmidt and Bo are working on, you can check out Ace Gold Green. And for the circle book, I kind of look at it as kind of like when you were little and you had a coloring book and you have all these great ideas and you just want them to come to life. And to me, that's what the circle book represents. And if anyone would like to have more information about the circle book, they can contact us. Here are our emails. We'd be happy to provide you with more information and go through the presentation. I know we've had some additional questions come through, so we can answer those, and we will be reaching out. We'll take off some of these most recent questions and reach out to you directly.
Great, thank you, Tricia. I think that we made a lot of great points today. And I think that it's obvious that education, collaboration, and partnerships are going to be what allows us to scale. Everybody's got to participate. So we call on everybody to participate, and hopefully we'll end up with a circular economic model in addition to circular supply chain models. So thank you for your time today. And if you have any questions, as Tricia said, our emails are there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye. Ciao. Bye-bye.